Have you ever caught yourself complaining about something and then complaining about something else 5 minutes later? Maybe it was traffic on your way to work, or the weather ruining your plans, or that coworker who never responds to emails on time. If you're nodding your head right now, I want you to pause this video and take a moment to really think. How much of your day do you spend focusing on what's wrong instead of what's right? This week, I challenge you to become aware of your complaining habits. Notice how often negative thoughts appear in your mind, how frequently complaints escape your lips. The results might surprise you. Many of us don't realize just how much we complain until we start paying attention. It's like background noise we've grown accustomed to, always there, but barely noticed. Yet this habit may be silently rewiring your brain, affecting your relationships, and holding you back from living your best life. Let's explore what happens in your brain when you complain. Donald Hebb, an early pioneer of neuroplasticity, famously said that neurons that fire together wire together. This simple phrase captures something profound about how our brains work. Every time you have a thought, neurons in your brain communicate by sending chemicals across a tiny gap called a synaptic cleft. The more often these neurons fire together, the closer they grow, making it easier for the same thoughts to occur again. Think about what this means for complaining. Each time you complain, you're strengthening neural pathways associated with negativity. You're literally creating grooves in your mind that make it easier to complain again and again. I've experienced this myself. There was a time when I found myself constantly criticizing everything around me. Each complaint led to another, creating a downward spiral that was hard to escape. This effect becomes even more powerful because of mirror neurons in our brains. These special neurons fire not just when we do something, but when we watch someone else do it. It's how we learn by observation. When you see someone throw a ball, neurons fire in your brain as if you were throwing it yourself. The same thing happens with emotions. When someone around you is angry or frustrated, you start to feel it too. Now apply this to complaining. When people around you complain, your brain starts mirroring that negativity. This is why negativity spreads so quickly in workplaces and homes. One person starts complaining, others join in, and suddenly, everyone feels worse. I once worked in an office where complaining was the main topic of conversation. Each day, I found myself being pulled deeper into this negative mindset until I started feeling trapped by it. The physical effects of chronic complaining are equally concerning. When you complain, your body releases stress hormones like cortisol. While these hormones are helpful in genuine emergency situations, frequent release can lead to serious health problems over time. Research shows that persistent complaining weakens your immune system, increases blood pressure, raises the risk of heart disease and diabetes, and even affects your memory. The body responds to your thoughts, whether those thoughts are based in reality or not. As the philosopher Epictetus taught us nearly 2,000 years ago, people are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. Your perception shapes your reality, which is why two people can experience the same event very differently. This connects to what Carl Jung observed about our tendency toward negativity. Jung believed that we all have a shadow side, aspects of ourselves we don't want to acknowledge. When we constantly complain, we're often projecting our inner dissatisfaction onto the outside world. What bothers us in others frequently reveals something we haven't addressed within ourselves. Now you might be thinking, but sometimes complaining feels good. It's a release. And you're right. There is a temporary sense of relief that comes with venting frustrations. Our brains can even release dopamine when we complain, especially if others validate our feelings. But this short-term reward leads to long-term suffering. It's like scratching an itch. It feels good momentarily, but often makes the problem worse. So if complaining is so harmful, why do we do it so much? Psychologist Martin Seligman suggested that humans have an inherent negativity bias. We're wired to pay more attention to potential threats and problems than to positive experiences. This made sense for our ancestors who needed to stay alert to dangers. But in today's world, this bias often leads us to focus excessively on what's wrong rather than what's right. Machiavelli, though more known for his political philosophy, made an interesting observation about human nature that applies here. He noted that people are more motivated by fear of loss than by potential gain. This explains why we often dwell on problems rather than opportunities. We're afraid of what might go wrong instead of excited about what might go right. The universe itself doesn't care about our complaints. It's neutral, neither good nor bad, neither punishing nor rewarding. It simply reflects back to us the energy we put out. When we focus on problems, we notice more problems. When we focus on solutions and possibilities, we begin to see more of those instead. This isn't just philosophical thinking. It's supported by research in cognitive psychology. Our reticular activating system, a network of neurons in our brainstem, filters information based on what we focus on. When you buy a new car, you suddenly notice the same model everywhere. The cars were always there, but now your brain is tuned to notice them. The same happens with complaints. The more you complain, the more you notice things to complain about. Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps, developed a profound understanding of human suffering. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response." This insight is crucial for breaking the habit of complaining. We cannot always control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. I want to share a personal story. A few years ago, I found myself in a job I disliked, with a long commute and a difficult boss. Each day, I would call a friend to vent about my frustrations. It felt good to release those feelings, but I noticed something troubling. The more I complained, the worse I felt about my situation. My complaints weren't changing anything. They were just reinforcing my unhappiness. Then I read about a 21-day no-complaining challenge. The concept was simple. Wear a bracelet on either wrist, and each time you catch yourself complaining, move the bracelet to the other wrist and start the count again. The goal is to go 21 days without moving the bracelet. I decided to try it. The first day, I moved the bracelet within minutes. The second day wasn't much better. But as I became more aware of my complaining habits, something began to shift. I started asking myself, is this worth complaining about? Is there something I can do to change this situation? For things I couldn't change, like traffic or weather, I practiced acceptance. For things I could influence, I focused on solutions rather than problems. Instead of complaining about my boss, I had an honest conversation with him about our working relationship. Rather than lamenting my long commute, I used the time to listen to audiobooks and podcasts. Slowly, my mindset began to change. I still faced the same challenges, but my response to them transformed. And surprisingly, some of those challenges began to resolve themselves once I stopped focusing on them as problems. This brings me to an important distinction. There's a difference between complaining and taking constructive action. Identifying problems isn't inherently negative if it leads to positive change. As leadership expert John Maxwell puts it, a complaint should be a catalyst for change, not just an expression of unhappiness. The key is intention. Are you just venting without any plan to improve the situation? Or are you identifying an issue as the first step towards solving it? One keeps you stuck, the other moves you forward. This isn't about denying negative emotions or adopting toxic positivity. Psychologist Susan David warns against the tyranny of positivity, the idea that we should suppress authentic emotions in favor of forced happiness. Real emotional health isn't about never feeling negative emotions. It's about relating to them in a constructive way. Sometimes what seems like complaining is actually grief, anger, or fear that needs to be acknowledged. These emotions are valid and important. The problem isn't having these feelings. It's when we get stuck in them, replaying the same thoughts without moving toward healing or resolution. So how do we break free from the cycle of complaining? Here are some practical strategies based on psychological research. First, develop self-awareness. Notice when you're complaining, what triggers it, and how it makes you feel. This awareness creates that space Viktor Frankl talked about, the moment between stimulus and response, where choice becomes possible. Second, practice gratitude. Numerous studies show that regularly focusing on what you're thankful for can rewire your brain toward more positive patterns. Each morning or evening, take a few minutes to write down or mentally note 3 things you appreciate. They don't have to be profound. Simple pleasures like a good cup of coffee or a friendly interaction can shift your perspective. Third, adopt solution-focused thinking. When facing a challenge, ask yourself, what can I do about this? Even if the answer is nothing, you can still choose how to respond emotionally. As the Stoic philosophers taught, we can't control external events, but we can control our reactions to them. Fourth, surround yourself with positive influences. Remember those mirror neurons we discussed earlier? They work with positive emotions too. Spend time with people who inspire and uplift you, and you'll naturally begin to adopt their mindset. Fifth, practice mindfulness. Being present in the moment helps break the habit of ruminating on past problems or worrying about future ones. Simple breathing exercises or brief meditation can bring you back to the present when negative thoughts start spiraling. Sixth, try the complaint to contribution transformation. When you feel the urge to complain, challenge yourself to find one constructive action or positive perspective related to the situation. This doesn't mean ignoring problems, but rather approaching them with a growth mindset. I once had a client who constantly complained about her family members not helping with household chores. Instead of continuing this pattern, she created a simple chore system that clarified responsibilities. The complaints decreased and family harmony increased, not because the problem wasn't real, but because she addressed it constructively rather than just venting about it. Breaking the habit of complaining doesn't happen overnight. Like any change in thinking patterns, it requires consistent practice and self-compassion when you slip up. Neuroscience shows that creating new neural pathways takes time and repetition. The good news is that your brain remains plastic throughout your life, capable of change no matter your age or how ingrained your habits may seem. Remember the equation E plus R equals O, event plus response equals outcome. We can't always control the events in our lives, but we can control our responses to them, and those responses determine the outcomes we experience. Think about your life like a garden. Complaints are like weeds. They'll grow naturally if you don't attend to your mental space. Positive thoughts and constructive actions are like flowers that need to be intentionally planted and nurtured. Both will grow, but which do you want to dominate your garden? Psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl discovered this truth under the most horrific circumstances imaginable. He observed that even in concentration camps, some prisoners maintained their inner freedom and dignity by choosing their attitude towards suffering. As he wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." If Frankl could find meaning and maintain his spirit in such conditions, surely we can choose a more constructive response to our daily frustrations. This week, I invite you to join me in a 7-day no complaining challenge. The rules are simple. Become aware of when you complain, whether out loud or in your thoughts. When you catch yourself complaining, pause and take a breath. Ask yourself, is there something constructive I can do about this situation? If yes, focus on that action. If no, practice acceptance and shift your attention elsewhere. You might be surprised by how difficult this challenge is at first. Most of us complain far more than we realize, but with practice, you'll develop greater awareness and control over your thought patterns. And here's something important to remember. This isn't about never expressing dissatisfaction or pretending everything is perfect. It's about distinguishing between unconstructive complaining and effective problem solving. It's about recognizing when venting is just reinforcing negativity versus when addressing an issue can lead to positive change. As psychologist William James once said, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes of mind." This insight from one of the founders of modern psychology remains as true today as when he said it over a century ago. So I ask you, what might change in your life if you complained less and took constructive action more? How might your relationships improve? Your health? Your overall satisfaction with life? The answers to these questions lie in the choices you make each day, in that space between stimulus and response. Remember, the universe doesn't favor complainers or optimists. It simply reflects back what we put out. By choosing to focus on solutions rather than problems, on possibilities rather than limitations, we begin to create a different reality. Not because the external world has changed, but because we have. I challenge you to try this for yourself. Become aware of your complaining habits. Choose a different response, and watch as your life begins to transform, one thought at a time. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might benefit. And let me know in the comments. What's one situation you typically complain about that you could approach differently? I'd love to hear your insights and experiences as you take on this challenge. Until next time, remember, between stimulus and response lies your power to choose. Choose wisely.